we begin with breaking news. This morning, Minnesota House leaders from both parties sharing new details about a power sharing agreement struck last night. And our Caroline Cummings is at the State House right now. She joins us live here. And Caroline, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks. You're getting a glimpse into my lovely office in the Capitol basement.
Yeah,
it's really great to have a workspace here.
Okay, that's actually something I didn't know, that every news station does have a workspace in the Capitol.
Yeah. When you spend enough time here, like me, it's a worthwhile investment, that's for sure.
No kidding. I mean, you were at both news conferences from Republicans and Democrats this morning. So, yeah, busy day at the Capitol. Kind of help us understand what this power sharing agreement looks like.
Okay, so really quick, we got to maybe take 3 steps backwards to understand why we're here in the first place, which is there was a seat vacant at the beginning of session because a judge ruled that the DFL winner of this Roseville seat didn't live in the district, and he said he wouldn't take the oath of office. So that gave Republicans a temporary 1-seat advantage, 67 to 66, when the chamber after the election was tied 67 to 67. So Republicans said that they intended to take that power. They had that majority, even if it would be temporary until a special election. And so Democrats said, in order to keep you from doing that, we want to boycott the session. And that's what they've been doing for more than 3.5 weeks now. The entirety of the session, they have not showed up to deny quorum or the minimum number of people required in the chamber to do anything. So that's basically paralyzed the chamber, right? They haven't been able to do anything without 68 members present, which the Republicans did not have without Democrats there. So that's how the context for this all. So they were working behind the scenes for a while to try to come to some sort of agreement. Democrats maintained that they wanted some terms that would chart the course if the House returns to a tie, what the power sharing agreement would look like. They had been working on a power sharing agreement before this vacancy in the Roseville seat. So they finally came to a deal last night. And what it looks like is Republican leader Demuth will be the Speaker of the House. She'll be the first Black woman to have that job. She will have that role for 2 years, even if the House returns to a tie. They had previously looked at co-speakership type of an arrangement. She will have that power, and it's a very powerful position for 2 years. Republicans will control committees until that special election. If they return to a tie, then Republicans and Democrats will share the committees. And for those who are watching, committees is where the sausage is made. It's where the bills are moved through. They have hearings, public hearings on the bills. So that's another part of it. Another win for Republicans was they wanted this fraud and oversight committee, which they will control and have the gavel for 2 years. That will look into any sort of investigation of fraud in state agencies and have some oversight of how that works. In exchange, what Democrats also wanted in this process was they wanted assurances that Brad Tabke, the winner in Shakopee, of course, you've been reporting on your show, right, Maria, who won by 14 votes. There were missing ballots at the center of the case. And a judge had determined in an election contest that he was still the valid winner despite those missing ballots. Remember, some of those voters linked to the ballots testified that they were, who they voted for. So in this agreement, Brad Tabke will be seated. The Minnesota House of Representatives has the power to have the final say over its members. And Democrats wanted assurances that Brad Tabke would not be unseated by the Republicans. So that's something that they got in this arrangement too. So all of that is to say each side is claiming a win here. They each get something they want. And the bottom line is they'll all come back at 3:30 this afternoon to actually really start session in earnest this year.
Yes, for the first time all together in about 3 weeks. Now, this news brings Lisa Demuth she's making state history here. She's the first Black woman and first Republican woman to serve as Speaker of the House. But Caroline, it's not really something she talks about often. And she actually addressed that in the press conference today, right?
Yeah, that's right. She doesn't like to talk much about how her race and gender play into her role. I actually remember interviewing her when she was the first Black Republican woman to lead her caucus as the minority leader 2 years ago, and she didn't want to talk much about that then. But she did say something then that she kind of echoed today, which is, she doesn't take that that lightly, and she recognizes the significance, but she believes, she's there on the merits, not anything to do with the fact that she's a person of color or a woman. And also, too, something she told me again 2 years ago when she was the first Black woman to lead the Republican caucus, and also today, was that, I hope one day, she said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that, it's not that surprising because, other girls and young women will look and see in themselves that they can do that too. And then you'll have, so many women, people of color leading a chamber or a caucus that it doesn't feel that significant anymore. So you are right. She doesn't like to bring that up, but she's ready to talk about it when asked. And she was certainly asked about that significance today.
And this all comes today as the state Supreme Court is taking up a lawsuit against Democratic Secretary of State Steve Simon. The Minnesota GOP filed this petition arguing he's overstepping his authority, preventing them to get Democrats back in the Capitol and fining them for being absent. But arguments for this case just wrapped up in the last half an hour. This comes after also Republicans asked the judge to delay this hearing. Obviously that didn't happen, but what does this look like moving forward?
Right, you're exactly right. The Republicans did petition, they filed a petition of mootness, basically to say this isn't relevant anymore because now we have this agreement and Democrats are coming back because, like you said so well, this whole lawsuit centered on the power dispute and Democrats being absent and Republicans wanting to compel them back into the chamber and give them fines for being absent. But now they're going to be here. This is the terms of the agreement signed on the dotted line. Both caucuses say it'll pass in a resolution on the House. So they tried to late yesterday say, hey, Supreme Court, you don't need to hear this anymore. But ultimately, the court did hear arguments this morning. What I would expect is that they might issue a statement or a ruling to the effect of, we won't rule on the merits because of the petition for mootness and that the House is organized. Because remember, these are two different branches of government. And traditionally, I'm told by legal experts, this court doesn't like to weigh in on matters involving the legislature. And when they do, it's very narrow in the scope. So while they did hear the arguments today, we might not get a ruling from the court, or they might dismiss the case after these arguments, given the circumstances of this deal now.
Yeah, lots going on there at the Capitol today. Anything that really stood out to you about both of these press conferences?
Well, notably that they weren't together, that they had all these, that this is an agreement that they both came to, but they weren't showcasing it together. And they weren't hiding the fact that there's still tensions there, right? I mean, this whole thing has really broken down some layers of trust and camaraderie that perhaps the leaders had before, because this obviously, descended into a really partisan battle over power, and it ended up in the courts. Quite unprecedented. This has never happened in Minnesota before. So I think it was now Speaker, for the former Speaker, Melissa Hortman, saying, there is still a little bit of skepticism from both sides, but they understand the work that has to be done. And that's really what's been lost on this whole thing, right, Maria, is that they have to pass a budget to keep the government open by session ending on May 19th, as the Constitution provides. They, of course, have had special sessions before. It could linger into June. They both projected confidence that that would not happen, but the government would shut down if the lawmakers don't pass a budget by June 30th for the next fiscal year on July 1st. So there's a lot of big things ahead. They're staring down a potential deficit in a few years if they don't kind of level check or have a check on spending. So a lot of big ticket items that they have to do. And, this is at least a sign that now that work can truly begin in earnest in a way that it hadn't been for the previous 3 weeks.
Exactly. And you got your birthday wish. It is your birthday today, and
that the house is in order.
The house is in
that
order.
was my birthday wish. Yes.
Oh, man. Yes. Well, happy birthday, Caroline. Thank you so much for catching us all up on this, because even those press conferences, it gets in the weeds and can be kind of hard to parse through. So thank you so much. And you'll have a full report, right?
Yes. Yeah. We'll be in I believe all shows 4, 5, and 6, kind of giving the latest on how we got here and what we can expect from lawmakers now that, Monday will look like any other day in the legislature, as I've covered it, for the past, I guess this is my 5th session or 6th.
Wow, yeah.
I had to check my own math there. Time goes by fast, but yeah, there's a lot of work yet to be done, and we'll be here to cover it all.
Absolutely. Well, Caroline, thank you so much. We'll check
Thank
back in
you.
with you a little bit later and see you in our evening newscast.